I've got the spores, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.
Welcome back to Domestique Cycling Podcast. Hogereden 2023 is a wrap. Isabella Holmgren, Thibaut Nys, Fem van Empel, Leo Bizio, Shirin van Anrooy, and Mathieu van der Poel, and of course the Netherlands won the team relay. Those are the names of the new crowned world champions. Guys, how excited was this weekend?
It was, I think it was phenomenal. I think Saturday and Sunday even, the most of the top favorites won the races, except the women junior category where Molengraaf was the big favorite. Had a lot of trouble during the race. But otherwise I think Thibaut Nys was the big favorite in the category. Fem van Empel was together with Per Pietersen. The Frenchman in the men junior race was the big favorite as well. Shirin van Anrooy and then Mathieu van der Poel or Van Aert, one of the two would win, and it's the Dutchman who took the victory.
Let's talk some business immediately. This man elite race was incredible. First of all, the atmosphere. There were more than 40,000 fans in Hogereden, which was incredible to see. I had some, ancient Rome vibes. It was like the Colosseum with the fans waiting for the one to kill the other. That's quite unseen, no?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I do think there has been a couple of world championships where we have seen similar size crowds, but if you compare to, for example, last year in America, like it was so much larger this year. As well, without any COVID restrictions, you just had such a huge crowd, and watching it just gave me chills all the time because there was so much noise from the fans, and also just the racing was super close and exciting. So
I think it's pretty fair to say those two phenomenons, they really make the sport.
Yeah, certainly. It's incredible the amount of people they bring to the courses. You can't compare it to the other men in the CX without being disrespectful, but with those two lining up at the start, it's an extra dimension to the race, and for the crowd it's phenomenal. It's once again
I think they also bring in a lot of people from road cycling, from maybe international crowds that will watch the race because they see Mathieu and Wout going at it on the road, and they want to see more of that during winter. So they obviously got what they wanted.
I don't know what about you guys, but I had quite a lot of stress before the race even started. Thibaut Nys, he mentioned he was lining up with a heart rate of 135. I checked mine at 3 p.m. It was 95, and I wasn't even racing. So but yeah, the race really delivered after all. Maybe we should talk about the start first. Wout Van Aert was on the road too. Is it okay to say that the Belgians lost the first battle at the start?
I don't think so, personally. It was clearly a tactical choice for Van Aert to stand right behind Mathieu van der Poel, because the Belgians were sort of on the left side of the road, Mathieu on the right side, and Wout had the choice to go stand behind whoever he wanted to. He could have chosen kind of a lead-out train, but he chose to go stand right behind Mathieu.
I don't really agree with that, actually, because I think the first three riders to dive into the field were three Dutch riders, with Van der Haar, Van der Poel and Nieuwenhuis. Van Aert was in fourth place, and we even had four Belgian riders on the first line at the start, so those guys, they really missed the opportunity. Van Aert had to battle first with Nieuwenhuis to win a position. After that, it was Lars van der Haar who was a little difficult the first half lap. So I'm not saying that decided anything, but it was weird to see, actually, in my opinion.
I think the Belgians were a bit overpowered because I had the feeling the Dutch team had a plan with Lars van der Haar to start the first half of a lap really fast some sort of lead out for Van der Poel. And Nieuwenhuis was the rear gunner for Van der Poel to keep Van Aert from the trio as long as possible.
Yeah, he really used his shoulders like twice, I think.
It was,
just not to let him pass.
It was actually quite nice to see, like, Nieuwenhuis did his job for the team.
Exactly. That was already a first part of the mental game, I think.
Yeah. And then, the rest of the race is history, I think. The two get separation really fast. We immediately know they are the two big favorites. And then we saw Mathieu van der Poel, who took a lot of initiative, I think, who tried multiple times to attack. But Wout Van Aert stayed in his slipstream. I
think it was clear pretty soon that, the two of them weren't going to drop each other before the final 10 minutes of the race.
Yeah, but I had the feeling Van der Poel was slightly better because we only saw one or twice a Van Aert attack where he tried to drop or hurt Van der Poel. But the course was really fast and it was really difficult to make a difference. Certainly when they're that close to each other.
Maybe in that context we should mention the quote of, I think, Quinten Hermans, who said, in a cyclocross race there's always someone who is 50% the best, and the other is always 49% the best. So I think in this case it was maybe a little clear that Van der Poel, he had a slight advantage within the race. He controlled it perfectly, I think. And as Van Aert said afterwards, it was pretty clear for him that, he would have to use his sprint.
Yeah, I don't think there was really a part of the course where Van Aert would really be able to get away from Van der Poel. I think that was very clear very soon. That Van der Poel was just either gonna hammer Wout every lap on those uphill sections and right behind the barriers. But in the end, I think it was quite a brave decision of him to take to the sprint, because we all know that Wout van Aert has a really good sprint, but clearly he was confident, and I do think that Mathieu was definitely the better rider today.
I think it was a strategic masterclass from Mathieu to not use the barriers in the last lap. Van Aert mentioned it himself in the post-race interview, saying he was surprised that Mathieu stayed in second position after those barriers. And Wout had the thought the whole race that he could start his final sprint in second position in the slipstream. So I think that was another mental battle won for Van der Poel, because he surprised Wout.
That's actually something I don't really understand, what Wout van Aert said afterwards. He said, I think he wanted to start a sprint in second position, but I don't really have the feeling he tried to force Van der Poel into the lead position before the sprint even started. Like, it's easy to say afterwards, but
I think at one point they were riding really slow. Like, after the barriers, Van der Poel was just braking.
But there's always an opportunity to ride even slower.
He could have done more, of course, but I think it was more like, damn, he's not attacking after those barriers, and then what do I need to do? Because he was surprised, so it's like, I need to go further. He was already accelerating before the barriers a little bit. And then the stairs, they went up quite easy as well.
After the barriers, it was pretty clear we were going to that expected sprint. And looking at it now, I think it was a copy-paste of what happened in Tour of Flanders 2020, I think. Richard Groenendaal, he also mentioned it afterwards, but that was the thought I had immediately in mind. It's not that Van Aert, he waited too long to begin his sprint, but at the last descent, after the last descent, he dropped the pace, and that was the biggest mistake he could have ever made, knowing that Van der Poel is that explosive. His acceleration is huge. So I think that half a second is where Wout van Aert loses the world title, I think.
I think he even loses the world title if he goes right from the gun, I think. Because if you see the initial launch from Van der Poel, he gets those 2 meters, 3 meters, a bit less. And Van Aert isn't really able to.
Have got.
Yeah, but he wasn't closing it down here, I think. So
there was a moment he was closing in a little, but imagine, so there's a descent. You have a nice speed, and then you drop the pace. After that, to start a sprint, you have to accelerate once again. So it would have been obvious for me to descend and to not let the pace drop, just pick it up and go straight forward.
It was a tailwind there as well, so it's
Exactly.
not like you would have a headwind and you kind of feel like you had to slow down. I do think from the moment that the pace dropped, that's where it was always going to be for Mathieu. It's sort of similar to how Mathieu won the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
Exactly, it already happened before.
Yeah, I think Wout should know this, and I do think he does, but at that point in the race, I don't think your brain is working at 100% either anymore, and tactical mistakes like this can happen.
I think when we saw the post-race interview from Wout, he said the first 30 minutes I was suffering so hard in Mathieu's wheel. In my opinion, I don't think you are able to recover in the next 30 minutes. So I think he was already quite fatigued, I think.
But going to the sprint, being Wout van Aert, you always have a chance.
You have it.
It's not that Van der Poel wasn't fatigued.
But it was a long drag to the line. I think it's underestimated from the time they go on the asphalt to the line. I think it was a really
after
long...
the barriers, the pace dropped. So
yeah, but
you always have half a minute to recover slightly, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a mistake from Van Aert for sure.
Looking back at the past few weeks, in my memory, this has been the most wonderful cyclocross season I ever experienced, I think.
Definitely in recent years, because it wasn't really dominated by a single rider. In the past couple of years, we've seen Mathieu kind of dominate the season, and then Wout can win some races. But I think this year was a lot more even. And as well, before those two got in, there was a lot of good competition between the regular cyclocross riders, where we saw a lot of different riders winning a lot of races. So it's just a very balanced season, which makes it really entertaining to watch.
Let's go back to Saturday. I was waking up, putting on television, and there was some rain on the course. We talked about 2 different options before the race, with a slightly wet course and a completely dry course. I think it's fair to say that we saw 2 different courses on Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, it was quite slippery on Saturday. It wasn't that tough, I think, because the ground was still quite dry, but it was just the upper part of the ground that made it slippery. Like we saw Molengraaf with her puncture. She lost her back wheel a little bit, and that made her puncture. So yeah, we saw 2 completely different courses. Saturday was a bit more technical skills that were required in comparison to today. It was more power and more speed.
Not looking at the battle between Van Aert and Van der Poel, do you guys think that this was a nice course for a world championship, or wasn't it selective enough?
I think in most races, like definitely the strongest rider won. I think like you have, and actually in most of them, the rider, like it was a solo victory, except for the men's elite. So I think it's definitely selective enough if the winner is able to arrive solo. And yeah, definitely on Saturday, there was more of that slipperiness that you also saw the choice of tires becoming super important. That was not the case today. So I think I would have liked to have seen the men's elite race take place on the Saturday course. I don't know if it would have made much of a difference in the result. But of course, there's always a what if. But I think the Saturday races were just different and good in their own way.
I think we should give credits to the organizers of these worlds, because besides the attractive racing we saw, it was a safe course as well. I think the public could see a lot of racing, but still there was some distance between the public and the riders. Like they said on the coverage today, you need to have a lot of place and money to make such course with 2 rows of barriers. But I think it was the race organization did a very good job in Hoorheide.
Yeah, for sure. We also never saw lapped riders, which in the races in the past couple of weeks we definitely did, where it became quite dangerous towards the end of the race. There were 10 laps in the men's elite race, and we didn't see a single lapped rider. Of course, there were some, but they got taken out perfectly on time. So that was really good for the organization as well.
Heading towards the World Championships on Sunday, we saw 2 different approaches by Van der Poel and Van Aert, I think. Wout Van Aert, he said before the race that another world title wouldn't add much to his palmarès. Well, Van der Poel, he said, yeah, if I don't win this race, then my cyclocross season, was one big failure. Do you guys agree with that now?
I think they both have a very different mindset when it comes to cyclocross now, where Wout van Aert has really become more of the road racer, and cyclocross in the winter is just a way to, do his winter training and also get some victories, get some sponsor money in, some wins in, but it doesn't make or break his season. With Van der Poel, you still have that feeling that he puts a lot more pressure on his cyclocross season and his mountain biking, and maybe considers the road cycling, maybe on the same level. But I definitely think that Wout van Aert has it on a lower level in his pecking order.
I think, being Wout van Aert, that he won't be that disappointed after this world title. Of course, he will always be, but before the cyclocross season, I don't think he would have thought he beat Van der Poel that many times, I think. And that's something which will have been quite of a surprise to him, because in the past, he was used to losing. Yeah,
but I think through the season they both said their big target is the Worlds.
Yeah, of course.
What Wout did this cyclocross season was above expectation for me and for him as well, I think. But I think he still will be. He is disappointed after today, I think, because he said in his interview on Saturday, it's all about honor as well.
Yeah, sure, but I don't think you can compare it, for example, to losing Flanders 2021. That's another kind of disappointment in my eyes, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, winning Flanders for the first time or winning a world title for the 4th time are 2 very different emotions. I think he'll still be disappointed about today, but it's not a disappointment that will linger. I think he'll get over it pretty quickly, to be honest.
Yeah, sure. And while for Van der Poel, it was kind of a revenge on the past. After all those things that happened in Australia, all the back problems. People, they may have doubted him, I think.
Yeah, there were some doubts about Van der Poel in general, I think. His back issues, his team, all those things. He proved them wrong. He proved everyone wrong today. Does it change all the opinions from people? I don't think so. But he showed he can climb out of a lot of trouble and still compete with the best.
All right, let's talk about the women elite race as well. Was this the kind of race you expected before? We talked about it in the preview. I said that we would see a one women show by Fem van Empel. You guys had some doubts. Was Puck Pietersen on the level you expected?
I expected more from Puck, I think, because it was on Saturday and it was more technical. So it was maybe a bit more in favor of Puck. But unfortunately for her, she made a little bit too much individual mistakes. And that caused the one girl show from Van Empel, I think.
Yeah. I also wouldn't call it a one-woman show. I think we did get to see a pretty close race for, I think, the first half of it. And even then, like, the gap was relatively close. Yeah, I think Puck just made a few too many mistakes, like Yves said. And of course, she did have that crash, which really opened up the gap.
I actually had the feeling that she's never really been into the race. Like, she had a pretty poor start.
She clicked out of
she
her pedal,
crashed.
I think.
She had to close gaps on Van Empel multiple times. I never had the feeling she really controlled it.
No, that's true. But from the first hill, the hill section, you could see Van Empel just speeding ahead and like being really impressive. But I also do want to mention Persico in that race, who really was in the mix to get that third spot. She didn't end up getting it, but I think she had a really strong performance, and I didn't really account for her being in the running for that third spot, but she surprised me there.
Talking about the preview, I think we can say we did pretty good.
Yeah,
like there were some obvious choices, of course, like Thibaut Nys, Shirin van Angerooy. Those were the obvious choices, but I think we pretty much predicted the women's race with Van Empel, and even we mentioned Lucinda Brand, I think, as well.
Yep.
So, and then
I
of
think,
course you guys owe me a beer.
I don't recall this.
I don't remember it anymore.
Yeah, but I do, and I think I said Eli Iserbyt was going to get that bronze medal, and guess what? He did.
Congratulations.
I mean, he rode a clever race, and he didn't really try to blow himself up early on in the race, so that's a really smart move from him. Maybe we saw Kuipers and Van Toorne to do that, where they just blew up completely towards the end.
I think I have two riders I would like to mention, like Zoe Bachstedt. The way she performed today was very good. I think he was able to stay quite close to Van Anrooy, who's fighting at the women elite races for wins. And Bachstedt is, I don't know how old she is, but she's
2 years younger than Shirin van Anrooy.
She's still very young, and it's her first level in the U23, I think. So that's a performance to watch out for. And yeah, it's not an unknown rider, I know, but she performed really well.
Give her 2 more years, and she'll definitely be on the level of Shirin van Anrooy as well, I think.
I mean, she's 18 years old. Like, she's obviously got a massive amount of talent in her, as well on the road, where she's also world champion. So I think next year for the U23, she's going to be the clear favorite.
Yeah.
Yves, I think I can predict your second name. You kind of joked that Herben Kuipers was going to get that bronze medal, but at some point in the race, that wasn't even a joke.
But you need to... he's not even a professional rider yet. And he's able to perform with the best of the world in cyclocross. Even halfway through the race, he was fighting for that bronze medal. I think that's I can say it's a miracle, but it was phenomenal to see him perform like that. And I think for a young man like him, that this
he
will
pretty
mean.
much burned himself. But I think that's completely normal with 40,000 people in front of you. Like 2 months ago, he didn't even think he was going to be there, and then all of a sudden you're competing for a bronze medal. That's quite insane.
That are the two persons I wanted to mention.
All right. Besides cyclocross races, there have also been some road races the past week. Maybe we should talk about Valenciana first, the Volta a la Comunitat Valenciana. We had 5 days of racing. Were there some names that surprised you?
The old fox Rui Costa surprised me once again. He already won one of those races in Challenge Mallorca, and now he decides to win a stage race again. He's 37, I think. It's his first couple of races with Intermarché, and I think the whole Intermarché team is
on fire.
It's only the 5th of February, and they already have 3 or 4, 5.
Since won 2 stages of Challenge Mallorca, Rui Costa wins this, Girmay won. And so maybe we're even forgetting someone, I don't know.
They're leading the UCI charts. So I think that's like whoever said like 4 years ago that Intermarché would be at the top of the UCI charts would be like, what are you saying? That doesn't make any sense.
Even last year, you maybe would have thought that it was a 1 year wonder, but they prove us wrong right now.
Yeah, it's not like they steal a victory. It's like they decide to control the race early on, and they are able to take the victory. It's like it's really nice to see. Actually, it's a team that's coming up the ranks in the World Tour. They aren't World Tour that long, I think. And for Hilaire van der Schuren, is this a nice time to be alive, I think.
Yeah, definitely a dream for him. I do also want to mention Thomas Gloog from Jumbo-Visma. 20 years old. I think the way he's ridden this week is super impressive with like really good results on the uphill, aggressive riding as well. I think
exactly. Taking initiative.
Yeah,
it's quite important for me.
Like he's been like trying to fight for those wins. I think on stage 4 he got second place to Gegenhardt, which is a Giro winner. So that's definitely some good competition. And maybe this is a 2-point pro race, but the class of the riders that were in this race is serious. So to actually be able up there with those riders is really impressive.
It's not that he get those results by sitting in the wheels and just follow everyone. He's really attacking.
Yeah, for sure. I think today he was sort of caught out. He didn't get into the leading group, so he was in the second group. So that sort of cost him his, I think, potential podium in the GC.
Maybe, Bram, take us with you through that final stage, because I think a lot of people will have watched the cyclocross race. So
yeah, I've had a pretty hectic afternoon because of that. So it was a pretty short stage, I think with 93 kilometers with 2 hills, mountains, second category and first category. I think most people sort of expected that it would be a break or maybe even a sprint, but on the first category climb, the people from Bora really decided to blow everything up and try to get Vlasov the win in the GC anyway. And they really tried to break Ciccone. So a 9-rider group broke off and, well, pretty much blasted to the finish line, mainly thanks to Damon Adelsman, who did a lot of the work for Theo Gegenhardt. And Adelsman actually, at the end, after doing all that work, tries to break away in the last 2 kilometers, and Rui Costa follows him, and I think they ended up with like 7 seconds over the main group, and then, well, Costa beats him in the sprint.
Yeah, I think Gegenhardt even crashed in the last corner together with Vlasov.
That's a weird thing because they didn't apply the 3 kilometer rule. They put Gegenhardt at a minute.
No, they corrected it, and he's third in the general classification.
Oh, they've corrected it since? Okay, I did not see that.
But I think one more rider we can talk about is maybe Aramburu.
He was on my list as well.
The way he was climbing in the Queen stage of this stage race, I never expected it to be Aramburu. I thought it would be Serrano or someone who can climb better, I thought. But it was Aramburu, and that was like a shock for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think one of the GCN presenters said we considered him to be a sprinter who can climb, but now he's become a climber that can sprint.
Yeah.
It was super impressive to see him climb that well.
It's fair to say he put another step forward compared to last year, I think. I would like to mention Marc Soler as well, because I really had the feeling he was climbing pretty strong. He was like freewheeling at times. But of course, his timing of attacking, that's still the same.
He isn't really a smart rider. Let's call it that way. He's attacking when you shouldn't attack, I think.
It was the Velasco stage, I think, with Jumels as well. He had to on top of the climb in the descent and defended 20 seconds.
I think he had to close down 3 minutes to see the front of the race, but it's Marc Soler. Maybe you should never change him.
I think it's a rider that just rides with passion, and when he feels he needs to attack, he doesn't think and he just goes. And it's really entertaining to watch. I think today he was also attacking right when McNulty was closing the gap. So that's like, okay, your best place rider in the GC is coming into the group and you attack out of it. That's like Movistar tactics, but then at UAE. Although Soler does have a history of doing similar things.
When talking about Movistar, about Aramburu and Soler earlier, there was a women's race as well today. Floortje Mackay was able to win in front of her teammate Liane Lippert. Those are 2 new transfers from the Movistar team. We already mentioned them in the transfer podcast we did a couple of weeks ago, that it were really good signings as a support for Van Vleuten, but also for the future for Movistar. And they immediately deliver.
Exactly. I never doubted about those 2 actually. And as you say, they can be excellent domestiques, but when Van Vleuten isn't there, they get the free roll, and you see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Also, for a race in Spain, for Movistar, super important, and they nail it on their first try. So definitely they sort of lived up to their promise. I think they're very happy with those transfers. But at the same time, in number 6 in that race is Cordon Agu, who also sort of got fished up by a smaller team.
After the BMB troubles.
Yeah. And she's also clearly had a good winter. She didn't make it to the front group in that race, I think. She sort of won a smaller group's sprint. I think she's up to show some good things this season.
Was it a race with a lot of climbing meters, or?
There were 2 categorized climbs in it. In the first part of the race,
it was actually the same stage as the men's did.
Yeah. And
so you had the second category and first category climb, and then the long downhill.
It was quite interesting to see. Like it's the second part of the course was quite flat, and still all the riders came in solo. So there were time gaps between the first and the second. They all came over the line alone. So that was quite surprising to see, actually.
Before we head to some other races, I would like to mention 2 things of the men's race in Valencia. Matej Mohoric, he was a pretty strong domestique this week. I had the feeling, so it might have been a good week of training for him.
Yeah, he definitely worked very hard for the team. He didn't sort of take his own day. But then again, like, they were there with Fred Wright for a couple of sprint stages. I actually had him quite high on my expectations for today, but they sadly were not able to close the gap, or well, sadly for Bahrain. I think they ended up being like 25, 30 seconds back. They couldn't close the final gap. But yeah, he's been riding really strongly, and I think there was that moment, I think it was in stage 2, where he was going a descent, and the motorbike was suddenly like, oh, there's a really fast descender in my back, and he had to get out of there. But yeah, obviously he's just doing what he's best at.
The second point is the Ineos team. They had Gegenhardt, Arensman, and Rodriguez. And yeah, before the race, I had some doubts who they would play out. And even during the race, I still had those questions. And even now, I don't know what the plan was.
I think it sort of changed in the last climb on stage 4, where Rodriguez was the last guy in their train. So normally you would have him being the leader. But I think 3 kilometers away from the top, he switched places with Tadej Gegenhardt. So he could do the lead out for Hart. So that was quite surprising. So maybe Rodriguez didn't feel very good that day and decided to just give the leadership to Tadej Gegenhardt. But it sort of felt that initially Rodriguez was the leader.
I think the stages weren't selective enough for Rodriguez, I think. And they knew Hart was faster in a small group sprint. So at that point, I think Rodriguez realized he can't win the stage race. Let's try with Hart and the bonification seconds. But didn't Rodriguez lose time in a stage somewhere? A couple of seconds? I don't know.
He might have lost a few in the stage Ciccone one, but that were only a few seconds, I think.
Yeah, I think it were 10 seconds or a bit less, I think.
What do we think of Damon Arensman? If I recall correctly, he's going to Giro within a few months. He lost some seconds as well in the Ciccone stage, but then when the race came to an end, he got a little better, I think.
I think the work that he did in stage 4 and stage 5 has been massive. In stage 4, he was in the break, and the plan there was to win the stage with Arensman from the break. And he rode solo for a long time there, and then he actually did a little bit of work at the foot of the climb to bring the train to the front. So he's been in great shape, and today as well, just doing all that work for Tadej Gegenhardt. It's sort of difficult to say what the plan will be for Ineos at the Giro, with Arensman and Geraint Thomas there. Geraint Thomas obviously hasn't had that great of a start to the season in the Tour Down Under because he was feeling sick. But Arensman is clearly ready to step up if that is what's needed.
Yeah, we had a small look at his data, or Dieter did, for Domestique data. And on that climb, he pushed around 500 watts. That gives us an average of 7.15 watt per kilo for a bit less than 15 minutes.
Jesus.
After that climb, he built a group at 5.2 watts per kilo average for 52 minutes. So
what
the guy
beast.
is
Poor Geraint Thomas.
The guy is in shape. He said before the first stage that he wasn't expecting a lot from the stage race. He didn't know how good he was. But I think tonight at the dinner table, he can say he's in a good shape.
Yeah, for sure. And as well in the Ineos team, Laurens de Plus on stage 4 did an amazing turn to sort of shake out that leading group. So in general, it really felt like we were going back to the old days of seeing the Skytrain. Of course, this is not a Tour de France, but they're clearly building a very impressive squad for those races. But we just don't know yet what leader they will play out.
besides Valencia, there were also some races in Saudi Tour, for example, and Étoile de Bessèges. So, let's go to Yves, our expert on that matter. Yves, what should we know of those races? What should we remember?
I think we were just talking about Ineos. I saw a little bit of the individual time trial in Bessèges today, and I'm really surprised by Joshua Tarling. He's only 18 years old. How he's able to finish second today, 8 seconds from the stage winner Mats Pedersen, who rode the same time trial last year, and he was this year he was 15 seconds faster. I don't know about the weather conditions, of course, but I think Joshua Tarling, he's still very young, but this result promises a lot for what's coming the next couple of years. And in third is Ben Tullet, another young guy from Ineos. So we all noticed Ineos is taking another direction the last couple of years with a lot of young and talented British riders, but young riders in general. And I think it already paid off in the classics last season with Turner and Pidcock, and Narvaez is still quite young as well. And I think that will become even better the next couple of years.
Besides the Ineos guys, there was also a young gun of Lotto Destiny who performed really well the past week, Arnaud Delis.
Yeah, he really got the Milano Sanremo hype going.
Whose idea was that?
Oh, I think I came up with that. Now, obviously, he's in super shape, already 2 or 3 wins this year. And he's been trying to work on his climbing as well, I think, in the mountain stage.
He finished 8 on the Mont Bouquet.
I think that's so impressive. Like, he was really trying to get up there and see how good he could be on a hill or on a mountain. So, I think this is going to be a pretty special year from him.
Talking about the Milano Sanremo, he will be positioning, I think.
And of course in that team, he's not the only leader, with Caleb Ewing also wanting to win Milano Sanremo.
Let's not talk about that anymore. For me, the leader will be Arnaud Delis for sure.
I think for now they should look at the results and
it's not even a question anymore for me, really.
I think that's being a bit unfair on Ewan.
I think Ewan didn't have time or races to prove himself yet this year, so maybe wait a couple of weeks and see in what shape Ewan is, because he didn't climb bad at the Australian Nationals as well. I know it are only Nationals, but he showed some climbing legs as well there. I'm not gonna compare with Arnaud Delis, otherwise I'm gonna make some people mad, but just don't write off Ewan yet, I think.
Yeah, he'll be feeling the pressure because of this.
Yeah, talking about Sanremo. You're talking about Sanremo, Yves.
Yes.
All right. To be continued.
I don't think he will win, but I followed Josh in our prediction podcast saying if Ewan finds his climbing legs he had a couple of years ago when he was on the crest of Poggio in 2nd or 3rd, I think, then he can win it.
But I think that was the year that Steven won.
Yeah, but I don't know if he will have those legs, of course.
And then he'll get on top of the Poggio with Arnaud Delis in his wheels.
Well, then he has a good lead out for Delis.
I think in Étoile de Bessèges, a small shout out to Skjelmose again, who showed he has a great future as well. And Nielsen Paulus took his 2nd win of the season after Marseillaise. Last week, he won the general classification in Bessèges today. He was able to take enough seconds on Skjelmose to take the yellow jersey or the leader's jersey. I don't know if it was a yellow one in Bessèges. I don't think it was a yellow one, but
I think it was.
I think it was orange.
Yves, let's talk about Saudi Tour as well before time runs up. Give us some names.
Saudi Tour, very interesting race, I think. Ruijin started off his season perfectly with a win. After that, he was the big favorite for stage 2, but a certain big Italian decided something else. Jonathan Milan. The first time I noticed him on the radar was in the Croatia last year, where he climbed very well as well on the steep climbs there. Some of our the people in our DMs are tipping him as Milan-San Remo candidate to win it. I don't know if it's maybe a bit too early to say because it's only Saudi Tour, we need to be honest. But besides that, he's quite young as well. He needs to be in shape because he's going to the European Track Championships as well, with the Italian team pursuit team together with Ghana. And then lastly, I think Ruben Guerrero, another new transfer from Movistar in the men's team, climbed very well on the Queen stage together with Buitrago and Formulo. And I already last year he was good with Education First. He showed some good legs again. He has some ups and downs in his career, I think. But I think with Movistar he will get some freedom. There aren't really, beside Moss, other leaders he needs to work for.
So times are really bright for Movistar. If only the tactics could follow now.
If they
all
put
will
some,
be good.
If they hire some other DSs, they maybe can win the Tour de France.
Are you a candidate, Yves?
Yeah, might be, but my Spanish is not good enough, and Spanish is their main language. So,
all right,
well, yeah.
I'll talk to you again in a few months. Good. What's next this week? I think we have the Women's UAE Tour. Besides that, are there some other races on the calendar this week?
There are. The Tour of Antalya starts.
Right, Turkey.
And the Tour de la Provence. Quite some nice French names, I think, starting there. I don't know if Pinot starts there. I was a bit disappointed in Pinot, by the way, in Bessèges. I was hoping he was gonna smash everything this season because it will be his last, but he's building towards a last podium spot on Tour de France.
No. Domestique for David
Gaudu,
of course.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think there is a couple of races, but
I think Tour of Oman is also going to be a pretty interesting one, where I think we're going to see Cavendish for the first time.
Yep, correct.
And also we're going to see some pretty, well, like Guerrero is going to be there as well. So yeah, I think that will be an interesting race. And Merlier for the first time for Soudal Quickstep. So Merlier versus Cavendish, couple of sprints. That will be fun to watch.
All right. What a time to be alive for a cycling fan.
Definitely.
Isn't it,
we're
Yves?
only just getting started.
What a day for you. Enjoy Mathieu van der Poel's victory. And we'll talk again later.
See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.